One that is a bit more involved, takes a little bit more telling, is the tale of Croglin Grange. The story is in a book called The Story of My Life, the first account of it, The Story of My Life by Augustus Hare. And in the 1880s, one of the Hare ladies married one of the Fisher family in London. The Fishers having lived up in Croglin Grange, close to Penrith, up in the north of the Lake District. And when their business interests had taken them to London, the Fishers had got Croglin Grange up for rent. And a family named Cranswell had taken it on a 7-year lease. The family consisted of Amelia, who was the brains of the outfit and who was responsible for all their finance and housekeeping, and her two brothers, Ed, who was built like the proverbial brick outhouse, and young Mike, who was slimmer and more of a field athlete, but they were two strong young men. Now, they'd only been there a short while when Amelia, looking out of her bedroom window, and an important part of the story is that the bedrooms were all on the ground floor because Croglin Grange was a single-story building. And as Amelia looked out of her bedroom window, she saw a thing described later as a scarecrow-like figure with gleaming red eyes moving towards her room. Understandably, she decided she'd like the company of her two brothers, please. But her room was locked. Not wanting to take her eyes off Chummy, who was approaching the bedroom window, she tries to unlock the door with her hands behind her. And of course, everything's then back to front. Consequently, the door remained locked and the key was on the floor. And there's poor Amelia trying to find the key while keeping an eye on the thing, whoever or whatever it is. It picks away the lead panes, puts its hand through, undoes the clasp, opens the window and climbs in and attacks Amelia quite savagely. She was badly bitten around the face and throat, and by the time her brothers had responded and smashed the door to get in, she was quite badly hurt. Seeing two strong men around protecting the girl, the other guy, whoever or whatever, disappeared out of the open window. When Amelia began to recover, she went off to Switzerland on doctor's orders to convalesce. And while they were there, this is where her business brain and her immense courage are so evident. She said to the boys, "We are not going to lose 6 years of a 7-year lease. It's expensive. We will plan what we're going to do next time. We're definitely going back to Croglin. And we are going to buy a pair of Swiss pistols, for which the Swiss were as famous as they were for their beautiful clocks and watches. And you boys will have one each. Mike, I want you in the room nearest the front door. Your door unlocked. If that thing returns, I want you out of the front door like a jackrabbit with your gun and shoot it. Ed, I want you and your muscle with me instantly, but the minute I scream, want you in the room opposite mine, doors open, and if I yell, Ed, I want you with me. Right. Boys both agreed, one gun each. And what makes the story particularly interesting in its detail is that these Swiss pistols came with matching ammunition. And the Swiss lead was a characteristic greeny grey, unlike the normal plain grey of the English pistol ammunition. So Amelia's plan was needed.
The thing, whatever it was, decided to make another visit. The minute she saw it, she screams blue murder. And I said, Ed, who was built like the proverbial brick outhouse, is beside her in 10 seconds flat. Gun in hand, loaded and ready. The thing says, whoops, there's a big bloke in here and he looks mean. Yeah. And it decided not to come after Amelia again. Meanwhile, second part of her plan was working brilliantly. Mike was out of the front door and shot it in the leg at almost point-blank range. It screamed, it limped. Mike was keeping a sensible distance from he's not very big. And he knows what that thing did to his sister on his previous visit. So there's no mock heroics. He's not going to tackle it. He follows it. It crosses into a churchyard near the house, down into a vault, and the vault door shuts. Now, young Mike is outside with an empty gun, and heaven alone knows what is inside. He doesn't know what to do. He doesn't want it to escape, but neither is he going in after it. He wants a group of supporters with him. Nobody comes. Finally, he goes to summon help, and he comes back with Big Brother Ed and half a dozen grooms and ostlers and the village blacksmith. And you can almost imagine this is like the Hammer horror films where you have rent-a-mob who go after Baron Frankenstein. And they're all, very well armed. And the Cranswell brothers and the most intrepid of their grooms open the door of the vault. There, on a raised dais in the center, is an open coffin. The body inside it is dressed in the clothes of an earlier century and is almost totally decomposed. But there is fresh red blood on its hands and fresh red blood across the mouth. And they all say, vampire! So, the vampire folklore being somewhat imperfect, but not totally unknown to them, they decide that the crossroads is the best place, so this unfortunate and, as we shall suggest in a minute, totally innocent corpse is taken to the crossroads, they chop the limbs off, they behead it, and they hammer a stake through it. While they're removing the limbs, one of them says, hey, there's a pistol ball in its leg. And Mike says, yeah, I shot him. And he looks at them, what's it? That is the Swiss pistol lead that I used. So now they're totally convinced they've got a vampire. And there were no further attacks. Previously, in Croglin, there had been problems. Other girls had been attacked. Animals had been attacked. But now it had all ceased, which convinced them more than ever that they got the real vampire. I was doing this talk, and there was a charming young GP among the audience who said, Lionel, I have an idea. And I said, come and share it with us. And he said, let us assume that the thing which attacked Amelia Cranswell was a normal human being, not a vampire, but was very seriously mentally ill, was totally deranged. And that he, like the famous guy in the New Testament who lived among the tombs, my name is Legion, and he had already made his base in that tomb not far from Croglin Grange. There was, suggested the doctor, there were a number of corpses in there from various periods in the past, and one of them in a coffin with its top off was largely decayed but still recognizable. And while the attacker, mentally ill attacker, is in the tomb, having just escaped from Mike Cranswell, who had put a bullet in his leg, thinks I don't know if there's anybody out there or not. I wonder. He manages to get, suggested the doctor, the pistol ball out of the flesh wound in his thigh, and he pokes it into the leg of the corpse. He then, no shortage of blood, it's pouring out of his leg. He puts it on the hands, he puts it on the mouth, he peeps around the door, and Mike Cranswell has gone to get help. There's nobody there. So he creeps away. And, suggested my young GP friend, 3 weeks later, the body of a pauper, of a vagrant, is found in a ditch 2 villages away down the road. Said the man had given himself gangrene, which had killed him. He'd handled an open wound, and he'd handled a decaying corpse, and infected himself fatally. Now, this is the 3rd stage, where we went to investigate, because we love to get there on site and have a look and ask the people who live there and really get the data. When we arrived at Croglin Grange, it was 2 stories, not 1. That was the first disappointment. And the whole thing depended on having the bedrooms on the ground floor, single story. Oh, we thought, this is not good. Then we went to Croglin village, 2 miles away. And the church had no vaults, was in fact relatively recent, and the only door leading anywhere was the door to the Victorian central heating underneath it for a low. So a man with a bullet in his leg would have been unable to escape 2 miles to the church with Mike Cranswell after him, shouting, "Help, help, there he goes." No chance at all. Oh, we decided, lovely story. And the 3rd thing that was wrong, the gun. If you and I had been summoned to help a lady who believed that the vampire was going to attack her, and guns were available, if we haven't got restrictions on buying them, there's no way I'm going to buy an old-fashioned single-shot pistol. I'm going to come after him with a big 44 Magnum revolver. If I miss him with the first one, I got 5 more shots. So, the guns were wrong, the house was wrong, and the church and folk were wrong. Oh, we called on Mrs. Johnson, who was the farmer living there, and she said, "Oh, do come in, let me tell you all about it. This bricked-up window is alleged to be the one through which the vampire entered the house." Right, we said, that's good. Ground floor window. And she said, "I'm not an architect, but I have a friend who is." And she pointed to some little bits that were sticking out at about midway. And she said, "My architect friend says that these things are corbels, and they are a sign that a roof has been lifted and an extra story has been added." Oh, he said, right. And then she said, "By the way, piece of land there, which was only 30 yards from the house," says, "I can't plan to that. There was a church there once, but Cromwell's men knocked it down." And she said, "Its foundations are still there. So the church has now come back beside the house where it needed to be. The house had once had only a single story. And then we get the period. And you solve the problem of the guns. Because when Augustus Hare's lady relative married Captain Fisher in London, and Augustus spoke to Captain Fisher at the wedding reception and got this marvellous tale, what he had not, I imagine the champagne had been going pretty well, what he had not understood was that Captain Fisher had actually said, "This is the vampire story that my grandmother told me, and it wasn't new when she was a girl." So we've now gone right back to the 17th century, hence the single-shot pistols, the church there before Cromwell knocked it down, and the roof hadn't been raised. So the Croglin vampire comes and goes and comes back. And
Some unsolved mysteries are apparently soluble. Others are not. And I must confess to preferring the ones that haven't been solved yet. Thank you all very much.
And I have many more tales of the unexplained to share with you. Like, share, subscribe.